The Sith trace their origins to the ancient history of the galaxy, thousands of years before the rise of the Galactic Empire and the reign of Emperor Palpatine. The Sith were initially a religious sect dedicated to exploring the darker aspects of the Force, a mystical energy that permeates the galaxy and binds all living things. Where the Jedi Order sought balance, peace, and harmony through the light side of the Force, the Sith embraced the dark side, which they saw as a source of power, passion, and ultimate freedom. The beginnings of the Sith can be found in the early rift between those who would become the Jedi and a faction that came to be known as the Dark Jedi. These Dark Jedi sought to harness the more dangerous and volatile aspects of the Force, rejecting the strict codes and pacifism that the Jedi Council preached. Over time, the differences between the two groups grew irreconcilable, culminating in conflict. After a devastating series of battles known as the 100-Year Darkness, the Dark Jedi were defeated and exiled from the core worlds. Fleeing into the far reaches of the galaxy, the exiled Dark Jedi stumbled upon the planet Korriban, home to a primitive but Force-sensitive species called the Sith. These Sith were deeply attuned to the dark side of the Force, and their society was one of rigid hierarchy and conflict, perfectly aligned with the philosophies of the exiles. The Dark Jedi quickly dominated the Sith people, positioning themselves as gods and intermingling their own dark side practices with the Sith's traditions. Over generations, the two groups became indistinguishable, and the Sith Order was born. The Sith Order grew in power and sophistication on Korriban and nearby planets like Ziost. Over time, they expanded their territory, establishing an empire built on conquest, fear, and the ruthless application of the dark side. This Sith Empire became a force to be reckoned with, and for centuries it thrived in the shadows of the galaxy, hidden from the Republic and the Jedi on Coruscant. The Sith believed in survival of the fittest, and their hierarchy encouraged infighting among their ranks, as they viewed conflict as the ultimate crucible for strength. This philosophy, however, also planted the seeds of their eventual downfall, as it led to internal betrayals and fragmentation. One of the first significant confrontations between the Sith and the Jedi occurred during the Great Hyperspace War, roughly 5,000 years before the rise of the Galactic Empire. The war began when the Sith Lord Naga Sato, a powerful and ambitious ruler, sought to expand the Sith Empire's influence beyond its hidden territories. Manipulating events through deception and illusion, he lured the Republic into a confrontation and unleashed the Sith Empire upon the galaxy. Although the Sith initially gained the upper hand, the Republic and the Jedi mounted a fierce counterattack. Eventually, Naga Sato's forces were defeated, and the Sith Empire was shattered. The Republic, determined to eradicate the Sith threat, launched a campaign to destroy all remnants of the Sith Order, driving the survivors into hiding. Despite the Republic's efforts, the Sith were not entirely extinguished. Over the millennia, the Sith would rise again, often in new forms, each time threatening the galaxy with their insatiable hunger for power. One of the most notable figures in Sith history was Exar Kun, a former Jedi who turned to the dark side and declared himself a Dark Lord of the Sith around 4,000 years before the rise of the Empire. Exar Kun was a charismatic and powerful figure who sought to resurrect the Sith Order and spread their influence. He waged a war against the Jedi and the Republic, but his ambitions were ultimately thwarted. The Jedi managed to defeat Exar Kun and trap his spirit on the moon of Yavin 4, though the cost was great. The Sith continued to evolve, and one of their most profound transformations came with Darth Bane, a pivotal figure in their history. Darth Bane lived roughly a millennium before the events of the Star Wars films and was responsible for reshaping the Sith Order after its near destruction. During his time, the Sith were numerous and fractured, their power diminished by constant infighting. Bane recognized that this infighting was a weakness, and he sought to reform the Sith. Drawing from the ancient Sith teachings, he developed the Rule of Two, a doctrine that decreed there would only ever be two Sith at any given time, a master to embody power and teach, and an apprentice to crave power and learn. This system ensured that the Sith would remain focused and united, with the strongest always succeeding and continuing the legacy. Darth Bane's Rule of Two proved to be remarkably resilient and allowed the Sith to endure in secrecy for centuries. While the Jedi believed the Sith had been eradicated, the Sith quietly worked from the shadows, manipulating events and laying the groundwork for their eventual return to power. They infiltrated the political and economic institutions of the Republic, sowing discord and corruption. Their goal was not merely to confront the Jedi directly, but to destroy them and the Republic from within. By the time of the Galactic Republic's decline, the Sith had grown exceptionally cunning and resourceful. Their influence culminated in the rise of Darth Sidious, also known as Emperor Palpatine. Sidious was a master manipulator who ascended to power through guile and subterfuge, ultimately engineering the fall of the Republic and the Jedi Order. Under the guise of Senator Palpatine, Sidious orchestrated the Clone Wars, a galaxy-wide conflict that weakened the Jedi and set the stage for his rise as Emperor. Through his apprentice, Darth Tyrannus, Sidious manipulated both sides of the war, ensuring that the Jedi were drawn into a prolonged and exhausting conflict. Sidious's most notable apprentice, however, was Darth Vader, formerly Anakin Skywalker. Vader's fall to the dark side was a critical moment in Sith history and marked the culmination of centuries of planning. Sidious exploited Anakin's fears and ambitions, drawing him away from the Jedi and transforming him into a weapon of the Sith. Together, Sidious and Vader presided over the Galactic Empire, ruling the galaxy with an iron fist. The Sith's reign reached its zenith during this period, as they controlled not only the government but also the galaxy's most powerful military force. However, the Sith's rule was not unchallenged. The Rebel Alliance, led by figures like Leia Organa, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker, rose to oppose the Empire. Luke, in particular, represented the Jedi Order's return, and his confrontation with Vader and Sidious proved pivotal. In the final battle aboard the second Death Star, Vader ultimately redeemed himself, turning against Sidious and sacrificing his life to save his son and destroy the Sith. The deaths of Sidious and Vader marked the apparent end of the Sith Order, but their legacy endured. Dark side practitioners and Sith loyalists continued to emerge in various forms, perpetuating the Sith's influence long after their supposed extinction. Among these remnants was the emergence of Supreme Leader Snoke and Kylo Ren in the era of the First Order, suggesting that the Sith's teachings and the allure of the dark side would continue to shape the galaxy's future. The history of the Sith is one of relentless ambition, destruction, and the unyielding pursuit of power. From their origins as exiled Dark Jedi to their rise as rulers of the galaxy, the Sith have left an indelible mark on the galaxy far, far away. Their story is one of passion and tragedy, defined by the tension between the desire for absolute power and the inevitable consequences of their own destructive nature. While the Sith have fallen time and again, their influence remains a shadow over the galaxy, a reminder that the struggle between light and dark is eternal. The fall of Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader at the end of the Galactic Civil War seemed to mark the final chapter in the Sith's long history, but in truth, the Sith's shadow endured. Their legacy lived on not only in the ideology and teachings they had left behind, but also in the schemes and remnants that would resurface years later. The galaxy, even in the absence of the Sith Order in its formal structure, continued to feel the influence of their philosophy and their commitment to domination through the dark side of the Force. Central to the enduring power of the Sith was their doctrine of survival. While the Jedi Order sought to preserve balance in the Force, the Sith embraced an ethos of eternal ambition. The Rule of Two, established by Darth Bane, ensured the survival of the Sith through secrecy and cunning. Even after Sidious's death, whispers of Sith teachings persisted. Artifacts, holocrons, and forbidden texts passed through the hands of dark side adherents, keeping the knowledge alive. Sith cults, like the Acolytes of the Beyond, who emerged after the fall of the Empire, worshipped the dark side and sought to recover relics of Sith lords, including Vader's lightsaber. The resurgence of dark side influence became evident with the rise of the First Order, a militaristic faction that sought to restore the power of the Empire. Though not explicitly Sith, the First Order drew heavily from the Empire's legacy, and its leadership included figures influenced by Sith philosophy. Supreme Leader Snoke, a mysterious and powerful dark side user, guided the First Order's ascension. Snoke's origins were shrouded in mystery, but his ability to manipulate the Force and his knowledge of the dark side suggested a connection to the Sith. Snoke's protege, Kylo Ren, became a key figure in the galaxy's struggle between light and dark. Born Ben Solo, the son of Leia Organa, and Han Solo, Kylo was seduced by the dark side and turned against his family and the Jedi Order that Luke Skywalker had attempted to rebuild. Under Snoke's guidance, Kylo adopted many of the Sith's principles, though he rejected the title of Sith Lord. His obsession with his grandfather, Darth Vader, and his desire to emulate Vader's power revealed the Sith's lasting influence. Kylo's path was one of internal conflict, torn between the dark side's allure and the lingering pull of the light. In time, it was revealed that Snoke was merely a puppet created by the reborn Emperor Palpatine, who had survived his apparent death at the Battle of Endor. Hidden on the dark world of Exegol, in the unknown regions, Palpatine had used the Sith Eternal, a secretive cult devoted to the Sith, to sustain himself and prepare for his return. The Sith Eternal's vast resources and unwavering loyalty allowed Palpatine to rebuild his power base and construct the Final Order, a fleet of star destroyers equipped with planet-destroying weaponry. This plan, known as the Sith's Final Order, was the culmination of centuries of Sith strategy, total domination of the galaxy. Palpatine's survival and return to power represented the ultimate manifestation of the Sith's resilience. Drawing upon ancient Sith alchemy and dark side rituals, he had transferred his essence into a clone body, though the process left him physically frail. Nevertheless, his mind and mastery of the dark side remained as potent as ever. Through the Sith Eternal, Palpatine perpetuated the Sith legacy, ensuring that their teachings and influence would endure. His goal was to establish a new Sith empire, with himself as its eternal ruler and Rey, his granddaughter, as his heir. Rey, a scavenger from the desert world of Jakku, was a central figure in the galaxy's final confrontation with the Sith. Unbeknownst to her, Rey was a Palpatine, descended from the Sith Lord himself. This revelation placed her at the heart of the Sith's plans, as Palpatine sought to corrupt her and transfer his spirit into her body, allowing him to rule indefinitely. Rey, however, resisted the dark side's temptation and embraced the light. With the help of her allies and the spirits of the Jedi who had come before her, she confronted Palpatine on Exegol. The final battle on Exegol marked the culmination of the Sith's millennia-long struggle against the Jedi. Palpatine unleashed the full power of the Sith, drawing upon the dark side energy of countless Sith Lords who had preceded him. He declared himself the embodiment of the Sith, a living representation of their collective power and ambition. Rey, supported by the voices of Jedi past, stood as the counterpoint, embodying the hope and resilience of the light side. In a climactic moment, she turned Palpatine's own dark side energy against him, destroying him and ending the Sith Order once and for all. The destruction of Palpatine and the Sith Eternal signaled the end of the Sith's direct influence over the galaxy, but their legacy remained a cautionary tale. The Sith had always represented the dangers of unchecked ambition, the allure of power, and the destructive consequences of abandoning compassion and selflessness. The Jedi, for all their flaws, had sought to balance the Force and promote peace, while the Sith had thrived on chaos and domination. This eternal struggle between the light and dark sides of the Force defined much of the galaxy's history. The Sith's story is also one of transformation and reinvention. From their origins as exiled dark Jedi to their rise as rulers of a galactic empire, the Sith evolved through countless iterations. They were warriors, philosophers, manipulators, and rulers, adapting to the changing landscape of the galaxy and using every tool at their disposal to achieve their goals. Their resilience and adaptability were key to their longevity, but their internal divisions and insatiable hunger for power were often their undoing. Even after their apparent destruction, the Sith's influence could never be entirely erased. The dark side of the Force remained a constant presence in the galaxy, and there would always be those who sought to tap into its power. Whether through Sith teachings, dark side cults, or the ambitions of individual Force users, the Sith's shadow lingered. They were a reminder of the duality of the Force and the need for vigilance against the corruption of power. In the end, the Sith's history is a testament to the enduring nature of the struggle between light and dark. Their rise and fall reflect the cyclical nature of the galaxy's conflicts, where peace is hard-won and often fleeting. While the Sith may have been defeated, their legacy serves as a warning to future generations. The dark side's temptation is ever present, and the fight against it is never truly over. The distinction between the ancient Sith, such as Valkorion and Marka Ragnos, and the modern Sith exemplified by figures like Darth Sidious lies in their philosophies, methods, and the scale of their ambitions. Though united by their adherence to the dark side of the Force, their interpretations of Sith doctrine, as well as their execution of power, evolved significantly over the millennia. The ancient Sith embodied a raw and unrestrained embrace of the dark side, rooted in their deep connection to the Force and their integration with the ancient traditions of the Sith species. These early Sith were more akin to dark side warlords and sorcerers, ruling through sheer might, mysticism, and the domination of their enemies. Figures like Marka Ragnos and Valkorion rose to power in a galaxy that was less centralized, where brute force and the ability to command ancient dark side artifacts were paramount. They operated within a context of sprawling Sith empires, where their power was bolstered by legions of Sith followers, armies, and a culture that celebrated the survival of the fittest. Marka Ragnos, for example, was one of the most legendary Dark Lords of the Sith during the ancient era. Ruling during the Golden Age of the Sith, Ragnos symbolized the zenith of Sith supremacy. His reign was marked by his ability to maintain unity among the fractious Sith Lords under him, a feat achieved through fear and absolute dominance. Ragnos embodied the ancient Sith ideology, a blend of martial strength and mastery of the dark side, coupled with a profound understanding of Sith alchemy and sorcery. The ancient Sith rulers like him relied heavily on their connection to the Sith people, their use of forbidden dark side techniques, and their ability to intimidate rivals into submission. Valkorion, another iconic figure, represented a more complex and ambitious approach to the Sith doctrine. As the Emperor of the Eternal Empire, he transcended the traditional Sith paradigm of overt conquest and domination. Valkorion's rise came through unparalleled manipulation of the Force, not just as a means of personal power, but as a tool to achieve near immortality. He rejected many of the more tribalistic elements of the ancient Sith Order, instead pursuing a vision of galactic domination that sought to transcend even the Sith's traditional boundaries. His mastery of the dark side was so profound that he became a singular entity whose power dwarfed the Sith Lords who preceded him. Valkorion was less interested in the rule of two or traditional Sith hierarchies and instead focused on consolidating all aspects of galactic power into himself, creating a force not just of Sith but of warriors, machines, and strategies. In contrast, the modern Sith, epitomized by Darth Sidious, reflected a more calculated, politically astute, and subtle application of Sith principles. The rule of two, established by Darth Bane, defined this era of Sith activity, prioritizing secrecy, subterfuge, and long-term planning over brute force and the empire building that characterized the ancient Sith. Darth Sidious was the culmination of this philosophy, where ancient Sith like Ragnos and Valkorion focused on external conquest and grand displays of dark side power. Sidious infiltrated and corrupted the very institutions of galactic governance, such as the Republic and the Jedi Order, from within. Sidious's methodology emphasized manipulation, deception, and a patient erosion of the Jedi's influence. Rather than conquering worlds through overt military campaigns, he engineered events like the Clone Wars to weaken his enemies and consolidate his control. This difference marks the modern Sith as fundamentally more insidious than their ancient counterparts. Sidious weaponized the galaxy's own systems of governance and justice against itself, turning the Republic into the Empire under the guise of legality and public support. This contrasts sharply with ancient Sith like Valkorion, who openly ruled as an emperor, or Ragnos, who wielded unchallenged authority through sheer power. Moreover, the ancient Sith embraced the collective nature of the Sith Empire. While they often fought amongst themselves for supremacy, the Sith of the Golden Age valued the strength that came from their vast numbers, with armies of Sith warriors and powerful councils. In contrast, the rule of two strictly limited the Sith's numbers, ensuring that the master and apprentice alone embodied the entire legacy of the Sith. This difference dramatically altered the scope of the Sith's ambitions and their impact on the galaxy. Sidious's Sith sought galactic dominance not through overwhelming numbers or massive Sith armies, but through concentrated, covert power. The nature of their connection to the dark side also reveals a distinction between the ancient and modern Sith. The ancient Sith delved deeply into Sith sorcery and alchemy, creating monstrous abominations and experimenting with the Force in ways that blurred the lines between life and death. Their temples and holocrons were repositories of immense and often destructive knowledge, reflecting their obsession with eternal dominance and their willingness to bend the very fabric of reality to their will. Valkorion's mastery of essence transfer and immortality is a direct outgrowth of this ancient focus on the mystical. In contrast, modern Sith like Sidious emphasized the manipulation of living beings and institutions. While Sidious was a master of dark side techniques, including the ability to cheat death to some extent, his greatest strength lay in his ability to exploit others, turning even powerful Jedi like Anakin Skywalker into pawns in his grand design. Sidious viewed the dark side as a means to control others, reflecting a modern focus on political and social engineering rather than raw mystical force. Perhaps the starkest difference between the two lies in their ultimate goals. The ancient Sith often sought to conquer and rule through overt displays of might, creating empires and seeking the adoration or submission of entire species. Their rule was defined by their presence, and their power was measured by their ability to dominate through strength and fear. Modern Sith, as demonstrated by Sidious, were far more focused on immortality and the consolidation of all power into a single entity. Sidious's final order, with its fleet of planet-destroying star destroyers, represented the ultimate expression of this vision, a galaxy ruled entirely by one individual, with no rivals or resistance. In conclusion, the ancient Sith, represented by figures like Valkorion and Marka Ragnos, were architects of grand empires, steeped in dark side mysticism and driven by a desire for dominance through overt power and ritual. The modern Sith, epitomized by Sidious, were cunning manipulators, operating from the shadows and using the galaxy's own systems against it to achieve their ends. Both shared a thirst for power and an unrelenting drive to dominate, but their methods and philosophies highlight the Sith Order's remarkable evolution across millennia. This contrast underscores the adaptability of the Sith and the enduring challenge they pose to the galaxy.